Steve, how's the conference going for you?
Pretty good, yeah. This is my second time to LKCE,
Yeah.
and I love it, especially getting to meet everybody again. And the topics are always, at the very least, Kanban people are paying attention
Uh-huh.
to what happens, and so a year later, they have more insight
Yeah.
based on last year, and it's always interesting. And especially, they mentioned Klaus, uh, um, uh, Patrick, Okaloa Flow Lab.
Oh yeah.
They're constantly, there's people constantly pushing the boundaries of what we know
Yeah.
and how we understand things.
Yeah. That's good.
And the conferences are the places to learn that.
That's right. So, did you have the chance to hear any talks?
Yeah, not so many because I'm more on the business side of our company now. So I'm actually, people are registering for classes. I'm trying to do that.
So you're working with David Anderson Consulting?
Yeah, well, it's the School of Management.
Yeah.
Its current form now. The understanding is that managers need to learn how to do this stuff, and it's good to have coaching and coaches to help people, but we recognize managers need to learn this, and so we're branding ourselves as because our intention is we want you, the manager, to learn how to do this stuff, and then you do it, and coaches will say goodbye, and the company will be fine without us. That's our intention.
Cool.
I mean, that's actually the design of consulting and coaching anyway, but we're just making it more explicit by saying we're going to train you so that you can do it.
That's nice. Cool. So I was asking about talks. What talks did you hear? What was your highlight, your personal highlight?
Well, I've been obsessing over the maturity model for a year and a half or 2 years
David
now.
mentioned it.
Yeah. So that talk was great because and I'm sure it's the case with every presentation people are making. Conversations the night before are in the presentations. So our understanding, if nothing else, having to stand on stage at a certain hour with a lot of people waiting for you to be ready forces a lot of issues because you want to be ready for the presentation. So just the night before we were talking about stuff, and so the thing I was happy to see in that presentation this time, because it's been iterating for a couple of years, is the content on the barriers between the barriers people experience between like one maturity level and the next maturity level. And that was at the end, and there's always compressed time at the end, but the material is in there, and that's like a big part of the training that we do now is actually it's explaining the model, how it works, but then mostly it's so how do you get from one level to the next, and what are the practices, or what are the barriers, like why don't people
what's inertia?
Why don't people like have a fit for purpose end-to-end Kanbanized system? We know how to do it. Why don't we do it?
The answer usually is on the Kanban book. We're busy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like so like and busy. Why?
Yeah. What's keeping you?
And so there's specific, like these are the barriers that we find. Not just asking people why aren't you level 3 or why aren't you level 4, but we've been trying for 10 years, and to help people, and why don't they? And so that's enumerated now, and then with like the coaching practices, which have been in the master class for that's the oldest class. That's been codified, so it's like given this is the issue, this is the thing to do about it. And that wasn't the point of the talk, but because the point was more.
What was the point?
How would I summarize it? I think the main thing was even we as a community have we could take our guidance and apply it to ourselves, and make some improvement. I think was one of the points. And then another is that there's still hidden gems in understanding this way of thinking about Kanban and how it applies to how relatively effective an organization is. There's still more to learn from these things, and like another year, and one reason the book hasn't been published yet is because we keep understanding things more profoundly and more deeply.
Yeah.
That entire chapters need to be redone.
Yeah. So actually, you would need to publish a version of the book every year or so.
Yeah, we don't want to do. I definitely don't want to do that. It's like if somebody wants to like product manage these things.
Yeah.
I want to release a stable version.
Yeah.
That like hundreds of thousands of people could be exposed to and be using, and then get like a slower feedback.
Yeah.
Because we've been getting lots of rapid feedback. Plenty of people are using this, even locally. A number of companies here in Hamburg, they're using it and getting feedback from the leadership material, which is kind of the least defined and most evolving the fastest. Yeah. Because it's the newest, and then the rest of the model, and especially when it comes to how to work with senior leadership to frame their thinking about expectations for transformation.
I gotta admit, I never read the book. I was waiting for the German translation by Sven Günther, and now I heard he's waiting for version 2 of the model, so I probably will pick up the English version anytime.
Okay, yeah. The one reason to do that is the posters, people can download them.
Yeah,
and
sure.
there's two. There's the A0 poster, which is the one with the practices listed.
Yeah, the huge one.
Yeah, and then there's the A3, which the new version of the A3. I think if you're going to show this to people, that's the one to show people.
Oh, it is. Okay.
It doesn't require Kanban knowledge.
Oh, that's good.
You could explain Kanban using that poster. The A0, it's, for example, in the values column, for example, balance.
Yeah.
What does that mean? And then deeper balance. So we have to define it, right? And we have to find it, but it's not on the poster.
No, it's in the book, I assume.
Yeah, and same thing with any one of those practices. Some of them, people, they may not have no idea what we mean by that.
Yeah.
And so the book is a necessary manual for the poster. But it's really, the poster is sort of, it's like a reminder of what's in the book. And what's in the book is in hundreds of blogs, several other books, multiple trainings, 10 years of conference video. Yeah. So it's just taken stuff that we've known and talked about for a long time and tried to organize it. So even the book is not complete.
That's That's interesting.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like
it'll probably grow ever more complete, like a Kanban maturity body of knowledge kind of thing.
That's exactly what it is. That's how I see it. It's like it's the body of knowledge of Kanban.
Yeah.
And it's the tip of the iceberg, really. It started with the practices and organizing them.
Yeah.
And then and then how to organize them. Well, first obviously by general practice. Limiting WIP, feedback loops. We have like 6 general practices.
Yeah.
But then by some are harder than others.
Yeah.
And then companies that do some of the harder ones, what are those companies like? And then the shift went to organizational maturity. If we think of it in those terms, what distinguishes different levels of maturity? And there's the CMMI and Teodora Bosheva, who is like the architect of the KMM, the model, and was one of the main people doing a lot of the work on it. She worked with CMMI, so the architecture of that, what defines the difference between, let's say, a 2 and a 3.
Yeah,
that was a starting point, but we have a service orientation. Yeah. We have the Kanban lens. Yeah. So when we look at organizations, we don't see it the same way the CMMI sees it. So we started to depart from them, 2017.
Yeah.
And it's grown, and so our understanding has also evolved.
That's cool. Yeah. So one thing that stood out to me yesterday in the keynote was that David said that you have, if I understood him correctly, a proven and repeatable way to get organizations to, let's say, level 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So how does that work? It's the first time I ever heard anybody make a claim like that it's proven and repeatable.
It's a big claim.
Yeah.
And so so one reason we were able to say this is we have who we used to call them Kanban coaching professionals. Now those still exist, but all the KCPs from the past are now AKCs. And
which stands for?
Accredited.
Accredited Kanban coach.
Yeah. And so like the accredited Kanban trainer, meaning the institution of Kanban University endorses these individual people.
Okay.
They're not people who've just been trained. This institution endorses them.
You work with them, or you have worked with them in the past?
You've been tested,
okay.
Essentially.
Yeah. Okay.
And demonstrated that you could pass. So the training tests, which they're not really tests like an exam, but they've been
more like a defensive thesis, isn't it?
Yes.
Right.
With the AKTs, they demonstrate, they understand the material, and they can teach the curriculum through the train the trainer class.
Yeah.
And if they don't demonstrate it, they don't get the license to train.
Sure.
But AKC, previously KCP was always, document your understanding of Kanban, and then go through a panel interview.
Yeah.
And in the last couple of years, that process has evolved to become pretty not standardized, but consistent.
Oh, cool.
And that still exists. And so one of the keys is we've added in a mentoring component to make sure people are prepared for the panel interview. Because we want everybody to pass. That's the point. We want people to learn this stuff. But Kanban is big.
Yeah.
And especially if you also think about what context are you doing Kanban. So let's say you have 3 panelists, and it's like IT, DevOps, and another, let's say a network ops kind of person, or whatever, software development guy, and you've been doing Kanban for legal firms. And
they won't get it.
Well, what kind of things will you talk about? Well, we have to talk about just Kanban.
Yeah.
And so maybe as a practitioner, like a coach, you've been thinking in your world of law, and you've been thinking about, well, we've structured work in this way.
Yeah.
For managing the work items, we've differentiated the work item types in this way, and that's been your obsession for a year. And then you're in a panel and you talk about the work, or you talk about the context, but the panel is like, what about Kanban? And so the mentor will help you extract the Kanban method and the practices and the coaching approach out of being embedded in, well, this guy or this work item or this problem. It's less conceptual, more objective, and that way people are able to pass the interview, meaning they can explain what they know in terms of Kanban much more successfully since we've been mentoring.
Cool.
So that's a big change. But so back to your question about
repeatable,
how do we claim this? So through many years of multiple interviews with like a lot of people, and plus over 10 years of case studies that we've been studying in the masterclass, like read the case study and have a group of masterclass students, like in the 15 to 20 people for like a decade, reading these cases and talking about them. And then the Kanban leadership retreats, where people, they're from all over the world, they've been introducing Kanban and getting results, coming back to leadership retreats, and then analyzing this stuff.
Yeah.
We have collected all of this knowledge and codified it. And so the things that have been working for like a decade, we know what those things are. Like we do it this way. We understand how we do it.
So you've seen patterns emerge there.
Patterns is a perfect word. And so what's important to recognize is that the A0 poster with all the practices on it, it's not a manual for do this.
Yeah.
It's a organizational maturity model, which is these outcomes. So this is how you define the organizational maturity. Like are they capable of consistent processes and consistent results? If not, then it's 2 or lower.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I like to look at it is, if you're at this maturity level and could use some improvement, try some of these practices.
Yeah.
That's our suggestion. These have been working. We've seen these things work.
But you probably at
all
least
over the
need
world
to
for
read
a
the
decade.
book, or need to have
you need to know what those practices
an
are.
accredited coach.
Yeah,
get point to get you there.
Get a KCP.
Get a KCP.
And so that was part of David's talk in the United States this year at the conference. Was for a long time, we've been training and developing these coaches. Now they're the AKCs. And the recommendation is, if you're having trouble with implementing Kanban, if you're having trouble with real meaningful transformation, like real change in results, hire a KCP. They've been trained for that. There's 150 of them in the world, and some of them have full-time jobs.
Yeah.
So you can't hire a KCP. They're not available, or it's very rare. So that's not fit for purpose advice.
Sure. Yeah.
People need help.
Yeah, where to get them?
So this maturity model process evolved into, how do we document what we do and how it works in a way that's trainable, it's teachable. You don't just have to go out and get experience.
Yeah.
We can teach you the models and the practices. And so that means that, because not only are we teaching like the tools, we're teaching, this is like a sequence of using them.
Yeah.
This is an approach to introducing them. This is a method to evaluate, is this an appropriate practice to introduce or not? Like, it might be too much of a stretch for people, and your clients will back off, like, this is too hard, we can't do it, or I don't understand it. Or it might be too shallow, like, this isn't to help, you're just making me stand up and move a sticky note, but I've got this digital system here, why are you making me do that? So by essentially putting all of our body of knowledge into a roadmap, from like a given level of maturity, the specific next practice you can try, all the way to get you to being able to be like an IBM and say, we shouldn't be in the mainframe business anymore, we should become a services company. First of all, finding that out and then doing something about it. That's level 6. Like cool. How do you get there? We've mapped that. Based on working with companies
IBM
that
would
did
be a
that
level 6 company
during their transformation.
Oh, so companies may rise and fall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And 6 is sort of a it's like, it requires a tremendous amount of energy, because you're actually changing.
Yeah.
And so companies don't constantly imagine like a government, and then it collapses, and then you get a new government.
Yeah.
You don't want that very often.
Yeah, we had yesterday when I spoke to David on this couch. He mentioned the South African leadership and the change of Nelson Mandela to Zuma, then back to another protege of Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to that when I spoke to David. But
okay.
What's your view on that? Is the maturity level, is it only depending on the person of the leader, or is it ingrained in the organization? So does it influence the organization, inform the organization, and then stick when the leader passes or moves on?
Great question. Those are actually a number of questions in there that are all important.
Oh, okay.
The leadership does matter. You mentioned, is it embedded in the organization? And yes, that's a stable maturity level. It means the culture is such that it will be a level X company, not because of its practices, but partly it's because people believe in the practices. It's their identity. This is how we do things.
Yeah.
For example, why would somebody give up their rivalry with another department's manager, especially if they've been fighting over budget for 5-10 years, stealing each other's heroes, like the project manager who can always get everything done. Now they work for me, and that jerk took that guy away from me. Why would they settle those differences and start working together and start giving resources unless they care about the customers? They care about this work item, which is a request, like recognizing the work items that I have. Maybe the customer didn't ask for it, but it's a component of what a customer's asked for. It's necessary to get it done well and in a timely manner so that the customer's request gets fulfilled. I may never see the customer and have no concept of who specifically this is, but to recognize there is a customer, that's why we're doing anything at all. And the whole point is for customers to get what they want.
Yeah.
Like making money for shareholders that's how we can afford to get the customer what they want.
Yeah.
And to continue to afford it, shareholders need a promise that don't buy a yacht or don't go to nice dinners. Save your money for your kids' graduation by giving it to us, or save your money for your kids' college, I should say.
Yeah.
Give it to us, trust us. We will make customers happy to the point we can give you some money back.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. The point is a customer's asking for something.
Yeah.
So unless you're just selling stocks, that's your customer. But if you're a business, you're not selling stocks.
Yeah, sure.
But so unless somebody actually cares about this, they're aware of it and they actually think that's what matters. And it matters more than the fact that 5 years ago, that other department manager took my best project manager away from me, and now all my budget's going over to that guy. I probably still care about that. It still matters to me.
There's no grudge there.
Yeah. Well, there may be, and but more importantly, I care about the customer. And so that's a description of how the values work. The values are really, it's a guide to leaders. To how should they make their decisions? How should they shape decisions about policy, or shape their decisions about organization design? Based on the values.
I read about Andy Grove some weeks ago. The old Intel CEO.
Oh, that guy.
His book is High Output Management, I guess. And he's the head behind the OKR idea you made it. John
Doerr is always talked about in the United States.
Yeah, but he's the guy from Google who worked with Google, but he learned at Intel from Andy Grove. Right. So, and Grove's perspective on leadership or management is that as a leader, my main job is to settle differences between those below me. So to help,
it's a good way of looking at it.
Not even making decisions for them, but rather enforcing that they settle their grudges and come to a joint decision to serve this objective. This is the idea of the original idea of the objective.
Yes, enforcing, I think, is an appropriate word.
Yeah.
I'm from San Francisco, which is in California. I live in Seattle now. I have a background.
I like Seattle much better than San Francisco, actually.
It's very similar in a lot of ways.
Is it?
Hills. It's wet. It's just, instead of rain in San Francisco, it's fog.
Yeah.
There's a Space Needle, or in San Francisco, the Weird Tower.
Right.
And there's a lot of similarities. In fact, the street I live on used to have a cable car on it.
In Seattle.
Yeah.
Oh, I never knew they had one.
Yeah, I didn't either. But there's a lot of similarities, but they are not the same city. That's for sure. But anyway, the reason I brought that up is, my background in the world I kind of came from into this Kanban world. There's a lot of I think there's a desire for people to be nice and to feel comfortable. And it's in an economy we have in the Western world, having the indulgence to think, I want to be comfortable all the time, even emotionally, everything to be just happy all the time. That's a luxury for us. I mean, most of the history in the world is like, I just don't want to die. I don't want anybody to kill me. I want to not feel pain, and so that would be good enough.
So basic creature
relief would be good. We're talking about a leader or a work environment should always be pleasant, and it's actually I think that's it's a very self-centered attitude, in my opinion. Actually, that's to me, that's consumption. I'm getting into some philosophical, economic kind of stuff.
Go on.
But I'm feeling good. That's consumption. I'm feeling good because a lot of the rest of the world is doing something. So that I don't have to. So I don't have to face my shortcomings and become a better man. I don't have to work but not reap my rewards yet. Save them for later. my savings is somebody else's spending, and that's kind of how that works.
Yeah.
So work should be challenge. That's your sacrifice. During your sacrifice, somebody else is benefiting right now. And then if your sacrifice is good enough, more people will benefit later, including yourself.
To everyone's benefit.
Yeah, so a leader is saying, you two guys, sacrifice your selfishness, become friends again, or don't, but get over it and work together, because there's thousands of customers, maybe millions of customers, and there's our vendors, there's all these other people in our ecosystem, our economy, that are all relying on you.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to get over your problems, get out of the way.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
because somebody will. And that's what we're doing. We're all trying to delay gratification. We're trying to sacrifice immediate, this is saying the same thing, delayed gratification, but sacrificing our immediate gains, or like our current experience, because we believe a future experience will be better for not just ourselves, but other people. And for example, we have identified 4 types of leadership, and this is the influence side of leadership, because there's also decision making, but like influencing other people. And one of them is, leading by direction, and we all know what that is, or by command.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, where I come from, there's plenty of people in that society. They're like, well, that's not nice. It's not fair. You should let me be self-organizing, or you should let me be autonomous and free to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
But you don't have a 5,000 person organization or a 20,000 person organization that can make a ship, that sails across the ocean reliably.
Yeah.
But with a bunch of people who are self-serving.
And
the leadership can be can tell you what to do, and
setting a direction.
Yeah. And if you don't really want to do that, you're still faced with a choice. Like, do I want to play along with this or not? And I think it may not be that important of a point, but where I've come from, especially in the Agile community in the United States, I don't know about other parts of the world. There's this idea of servant leadership. It's actually an attempt to be pretty specific about how to give direction to people.
Yeah.
And how to not give direction to people, but give an intention so that they figure out how to do something.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty good guidance, but people don't read it, they don't pay attention, and they just hear servant leadership, and they're thinking our boss should be nice and say nice things to us. And so we're happy, and we can throw a ball around in a circle and enjoy our time at work. And it's like you're spending other people's money the entire time you're working. And I think it's a good idea to think about that, and think, especially in a publicly traded company, it's like grandparents' retirement savings is what you're consuming when you're not producing stuff at work. You're spending somebody's savings. And I think that really it's a moral issue. And so and I think leaders don't necessarily need to communicate in this way, because that's maybe, but the point is they should be aware of there is a purpose for the business, and there's a purpose for the activity that people are getting involved in, and narrowing it down to what is a customer's request, and that we're committed to delivering on that. That sort of summarizes the entire economic question into this transaction.
And that purpose probably is not making the shareholders
incredibly
rich.
Definitely not. No. Right. So if you are the underwriter, like if you work in the finance department and you're trying to convince these people, like the bank, who has all these savings from all these different people, to issue stock for you or whatever, well, then your purpose is this bank and giving them an ROI. But part of your stakeholders, and in that sort of context of there's multiple people involved.
Right. That takes us back to George Parker's keynote yesterday evening, and it's a matter of perspectives.
Yes.
So the banking people or the underwriter have a different perspective on it
exactly.
than the product people.
Yeah. But I think just fundamentally, if you think of the organization as it has a boundary around it, and an identity. Like, what is this company? Its purpose is not for the shareholders.
No.
That's a mechanism.
Yeah.
It's how it does what it does. Yeah. But in the same way, as a person who drives around in a city, my purpose is not to pay taxes for the roads.
No.
My purpose is to get somewhere.
Yeah.
I pay taxes for the roads as a mechanism so I can get somewhere.
Yeah.
And actually, where am I going? Well, that's actually my purpose. So the car and the act of driving is fulfilling some purpose. Right. So anyway, but the thing that so leadership, and then like is the maturity level embedded? Leaders are the ones who are able to influence values. Meaning, so does this matter? Does that not matter? Leaders define that. And it may not be the boss. There's all sorts of leaders, but leaders are the ones who are defining those things. And other people will agree or they leave. So like, if people think, I don't agree with this, I think this matters, nobody in this company thinks it matters, I'm leaving. That's one way of describing it. So if people think once they agree on what matters, they'll do things about it. So if they think the customer matters, they'll settle their differences and collaborate to get the work to the customer.
Sure.
If they think regulatory compliance matters, that's a specific value for level. It's a minimum requirement for maturity level 4. Is if you don't think regulatory compliance matters, you won't be a stable, reliable company for very long.
Yeah.
Because at some point you're going to get slammed by regulators.
Yeah, sure.
And then like Uber, kicked out of the country. Yeah. That's not maturity level 4.
No.
Customers love them. A lot of people sacrifice on behalf of the customer.
Yeah.
The customers loved it, but then finally it was too much. Governments kick them out.
Yeah.
And then in other cases, the drivers say, "Screw this! I'm driving for Lyft."
Yeah, well,
because they treat us poorly.
Yeah.
And so level 3 is fitness for purpose, meaning the customers might like you, but it might be at a lot of other people's expense.
Uh-huh.
Spotify might be a good example. Everybody loves Spotify, but I think they lose $1 billion a year.
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
No profit ever.
That's not fit for purpose.
Not in the long run, no.
Not well. So it's. I mean, I'm sorry.
It's fit for purpose
because the customers. Yeah, you're right. Because the customers love it, but it's not sustainable fitness for purpose, which would be level 4.
So level 4 is sustainability.
Exactly, and that's this sort of shareholder value concept. I think that's what they're really getting at. Is it's not realistic if your time horizons are 4, 5, 10 years. It's like the leadership of the company.
Yeah.
It's not realistic to consume $1 billion a year so some people can enjoy the music they listen to.
Yeah.
That's actually a really horrible way to run a business. And if I was like a king of an economy, I would make that illegal. It's like, no, we're not going to burn $1 million a year or $1 billion a year. So people can spend a few minutes or hours listening to songs through a specific mechanism.
Yeah. Well, that depends on what else we're doing. It may be that it's a philanthropic endeavor that we're doing. So we're earning our money somewhere else, and then we say we earn that much money, like Apple, for example, they could probably afford. So we want to make a cultural gift to people and help people to enjoy this music worldwide, even if they're not have the means to buy CDs regularly or something like that.
But I think make that explicit would be fair.
Yeah.
But if people,
Spotify.
I'm from Silicon Valley.
Yeah,
and there's definitely a lot of money going there. Yeah. And so here's an example. I was in one office. It's a startup. They made no money. They had no real customers. They had commercials on TV to try to get people to subscribe. And so when I was in there for like a meetup, it looked like a nice bar. This is their cafeteria. Mm-hmm. It looked like a nice like brewery pub or gastropub or a bar or something. Like wood floors and all this stuff. Anyway, there was this refrigerator wall of the kind of glass door refrigerators. They're like $4,000, $5,000 each. It's a wall of them, full of wine bottles. And considering they were storing the wine bottles in there under their own temperature-regulated refrigeration, they were not cheap wine bottles.
Uh-huh.
Because they can just get those by the box once a day or once a month. But the real key is, so the kitchen, which had some kind of expensive countertop. This is the main data point, or artifact, I guess, is there was a sink that was hand-hammered copper.
Okay.
So this is when China was coming to the United States and stealing copper, like out of apartments and telephone wires, because there was demand in China for copper.
Yeah.
And they had a sink that was made of hand-hammered copper, meaning an actual tradesman who probably earns a lot of money for a decade or lifetime of skills, be able to shape a sink by hand. And it was in this cafeteria for a startup that doesn't even make money. Doesn't even really have its customers figured out yet.
Oh, well.
And I thought, would the people in Hamburg who bought into a mutual fund that is funding this company, and like the grandma and grandpa in Iowa who are trying to get like a monthly check to live on, and they put their money in there, would they have approved the budget for a hand-hammered copper sink in this company?
There's reasonable doubt about it.
That hasn't proven that it can actually make money. And the fact is, it never did. It's gone. Company's gone.
What a waste.
And I think, like, sure, they were spending money on agile coaching. Great idea. Figure out how to actually make a customer and deliver value to the customer. Spending money on a really nice sink in a wonderful work environment. It's like, one thing I found about motivation, and the woman was talking about that yesterday, purpose is motivating. Luxury is not really motivating. Luxury is demotivating. So maybe a folding table and a photograph of our mission, like this customer getting what they want, and maybe some photographs from grandma and grandpas who are paying for all this with their savings. They're trusting you to like succeed and give them a return. Maybe that's motivating.
Yeah.
It's not maybe pleasurable, but it's motivating. And succeeding in something that matters is very pleasurable.
Yeah.
It just you enjoy yourself at the end, not in the beginning. But that's, as a leader, I'd want to shape a system like that.
So I think that's always a good question. Would you recommend your own grandma or your own parents to invest in this company?
Totally.
So if it was your parents' money in here, would you behave like you do?
Very great question to ask yourself and ask the people in the company. So leaders, basically what you're doing, that's like an act of leadership. Yeah. Asking a question like that.
Yeah.
That would be an inspiration. So there's 4 different types. So inspiring is another way of leading, influencing, and it's the most vague. But I think the way to put it, it's like you create in an abstract sense, you create a possibility.
Yeah.
And it's not the way it is now. In the way you say it, because it's saying things or some other type of communication is what this would have to require, is communication. Saying it is most common in a way that people also can see it's possible.
Yeah.
So like maybe I could behave in a way that slightly guarantees a little bit more that these people who've invested in me haven't made a mistake. Like maybe I don't know how to like guarantee this company's going to survive or make money.
Yeah.
But I know I could talk to that customer instead now as opposed to waiting till tomorrow. Yeah. Like this customer with a problem, I could deal with it now instead of wait. Or I could prepare a little bit more for this short meeting that has way too much information to share. And then the next one is a week in the future. I could prepare slightly more so that maybe what I'm trying to say to these people gets understood and something gets done about it before the next meeting. Yeah. Like just I could do something. And so leadership, like you're saying, like, pointing the finger at something that's true. Like people have trusted us. People who have something to lose have trusted us to do some work, and maybe we could remember that when we're making our daily decisions. That's an inspiration. And so leaders in this way get people to start caring about things that they may not, at least all the time. And it's not like people think like, oh, I don't care about customers, or I don't care about results, or I don't care about regulations. They just care about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So which of the things are they caring about when they're making their decisions right now regarding work? Leaders can focus on that. That's what this cultural values, and it's company cultural values, not national cultural values, but company cultural values dimension of the maturity model. It's guidance for leaders. But the point is, if they do that, then the willingness to, get better. So, for example, like this analogy of like, there's meetings. We meet once a week. I've got a half hour. A lot of other people have to also contribute. I need to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
Well, there might be a practice in the Kanban maturity model. It's a Kanban practice that's would help me prepare for that meeting, like some kind of data, some type of metrics or KPIs that I could track that actually, simplifies and what's the word for it, where you take complex information and turn it into a number.
Condense it.
Condense, yeah. That's a good word.
Yeah.
So it's a practice that I could put into practice that would help me condense this stuff so I could achieve what I'm hoping to achieve through this meeting, which will make an improvement. Yeah. And so that's what the maturity model is for. It's like, so if we recognize these things are important, here are some things we can try that will do that. And if I care that this matters and I try this and it works, I want to keep doing it. Now I'm that maturity level. My company is this maturity level.
Yeah.
Meaning I'm getting those kinds of results. If we do these things and we don't give them up because we believe they matter, we will have, and this is like the poster, the practices, the outcomes, and the values. So that's what I'm going like this for.
Yeah.
If we do these things because we do believe in them, we'll get these results.
And if I get this to spread through, to spread throughout the company, then it no longer depends on me as a leader, but on everybody.
Exactly.
Cool. And then I can step down.
There's the active leadership at all level,
Yeah.
which is like maybe someday I'm like distracted, I'm not at my best.
Yeah.
Everyone else there, because this is our culture, they enforce the norms.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, Steve, you were not prepared for this meeting. Yeah. And I'm like, you're right. Yeah. So I don't want to be like this again.
Yeah.
I like to be a contributor. Yeah. So next time I'll practice more. I'll get ready.
There's a practice or a thought like don't tolerate. So if you see behavior outside the values or outside the cultural norms that we want to have, don't tolerate. Speak up.
Yeah. I think just one last point, because I think this will really illustrate sort of the dynamicism of the maturity model about tolerance. So tolerance is diversity and tolerance, and valuing that is a very big thing in America and probably a lot of the world. That's a high maturity value.
Yeah.
Meaning
it's a different kind of tolerance.
If you're running out of time, well, kind of, but if you're running out of time and like bankruptcy is imminent, you need to give direction, and you need to limit what's possible. So meaning give up your own stuff and commit to some sacrificing for somebody else. Once you have a stable enough business, if you are too tribalistic, meaning we can only tolerate these actions and nothing else, you're never gonna get further than that. So tolerance is in like putting the energy into having people who are quite different collaborate, because that's a lot of conflict. And you want that. That's actually the point. But if you can't handle conflict in the company because it's not mature enough, it's not good advice.
No.
You should actually build a tribe so that you could become stable and reliable, then start expanding the definition of what is our tribe. And that takes leadership energy. And if you don't even have your purpose defined, you should focus on that before diluting your company culture, with too much heterogeneity. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So
purpose first, then by purpose find people, then build the people, and then go help support the customers.
Higher order values, like ideal values, are way deeper into the maturity model. in shallower values are like a requirement to get there.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah. See, I guess we got news from the keynote incoming.
Okay, so, that'd be great to hear.
It was great talking to you. Thank you
very
much for the excellent talk.
Und das war's auch schon wieder für dieses Mal. Hat dir das Video gefallen? Dann gib ihm ein Like. Am besten klickst du auch direkt auf Kanal abonnieren, um in Zukunft ja nichts zu verpassen. Hast du Feedback, Anregungen oder Wünsche? Schreib sie uns entweder in die Kommentare oder sprich uns auf dem nächsten Treffen einfach direkt an. Weitere Infos dazu, zu diesem Video und der Limited WiP Society selbst findest du in der Beschreibung. Bis bald!